Teaching writing. Controversies. In the 60s, there's this idea that writing can't be taught. It's an inherent ability. But since disposing of that idea, there have been concurrent and overlapping debates that could be framed in these three questions. How does writing happen? What are we basing lessons on? And which language learning approach do we follow? Audio-linguistic or communicative approach to language teaching? First controversy, expressive versus cognitive debate. In expressives, the teacher should get out of the way. The learners need to be creative. If you focus on form and errors, you're inhibiting the learning of writing. But in the cognitive side, they want to facilitate writing through focusing on the process, pre-writing, during the writing, post-writing activities. Another controversy was between product, process, or genre-based. The product is the older one, 1960 and on, focused on passing the essay exam, and so they would give controlled writing exercises. They'd have sample writings of essays. Students were asked to emulate that. They have dictation exercises. In the process-based view, you focus on learning how to write, and some of the techniques they used with that was journaling, write, revise, edit, peer review, and so on. The newest genre-based lessons focus on the communicative act of writing in various real-life situations. And one of the processes that they use is to set a context for the student, analyze a sample of writing in that same context, that genre. Then the students should emulate that example, and after they've learned from this, they extrapolate about that genre. The third debate was between audio-lingual method versus communicative approach to language teaching. In ALM, writing is a tool to learn to speak better, and the aim is structural accuracy. Most of the strategies would be drills. In CALT, writing is a part of language competence. The aim is clarity and appropriate language. We learn writing through the process of pre-writing activity, activity during writing, and post-writing evaluation or other activities. What's left standing after the debate, this is my opinion, we might use either the cognitive or the expressive approach. Both have value. Cognitive process-based approach to teaching yields clear activities in the classroom. But the expressive approach still can have values. Student-centered, it encourages freedom and creativity. I think we can choose to base a lesson on product, process, or genre. There might still be times when we need to focus on that essay, the exam that some students need to pass. In process, there are many good strategies and techniques upon which to base a lesson. And genre-based, especially in language 2 and foreign language teaching, this focus might lead to more competency in writing. And finally, I think we would favor a CALT approach to teaching writing. It deals more directly with teaching writing and is focused on communication, although ALM type drills could still be used to work on discrete structures or forms. Key concepts, kind of a review. You have cognitive versus expressive approach. You have product, process, or genre-based lessons. And you have ALM or CALT focus. One added note here, summative or criteria-based assessment of writing. In summative, it's just, you got a B. In criterion-based, you use a rubric and you actually give some feedback to the students. General principles in this writing part of teaching. We tend to think of foreign language teaching writing as a tool to develop speaking. You know, we say, I know how to speak a certain language. But writing is communication. It's a part of language competency. We could even say, yeah, I can write such and such language. When designing a writing activity, consider the following. Writing in the target language can be much more than just a drill for practicing language. Writing that performs communication is pedagogically more effective. Writing in the target language carries unique challenges for your students. Identify them and let them inform your lessons. Target those challenges. And finally, writing activities can have different aims. Decide what you're shooting for. Are you practicing structures, increasing vocabulary, assessing comprehension, or teaching writing in the target language? Techniques and activities that I found in the research, there's pre-writing activities. They're basically idea generating and arranging activities, typical brainstorming or asking preset questions about a topic to open up the student's mind about what he or she will write, diagramming thoughts, or reading sample writing. During the writing and after the writing, here are some other activities. Peer review, where they read each other's writing or perform the writing for one another and give each other advice. Teacher conferencing, where you meet individually with students to talk about their writing. I've actually found that to be really effective in the English composition teaching that I do. Journaling, just practicing writing every day. Learn writing through writing. Revising, editing, and also portfolio creation, which I thought was quite interesting. It's, gather a student's writing together and publish it in some way, not necessarily formal publishing, but the idea is that they are writing to be read, and that increases motivation. Genre-based process, from that, I mentioned it before, that idea of setting a context, analyzing a sample writing, emulating that sample, and then extrapolating. It seems like a really good outline for a good class activity or a series of them. And then finally, there are drills you can do with writing, controlled writing or dictation. My activity, peer review of composed stories. Here are my achievement-based objectives. Learners will have negotiated meaning by verbally sharing their composition in Koine Greek with other students. Learners will have identified and chosen one to three linguistic functions which they wish to learn better. Here's a quick overview. Lesson 1 would be more of a pre-writing exercise. I give them instructions about how to write a 6 to 10 line story, very short. I give them a core vocabulary list, give them directions to bring a clean copy of the story to the next class. In lesson 2, which is the actual activity that I'm presenting here, they would share stories with a partner, negotiating meaning. So they would actually, speak their story line by line, and their partner would ask them questions line by line, who, what, where, when. And in doing that, they're negotiating meaning using their composition. Then when that activity is over, we'll hear what went well in the communication, and then create a list together as a class group of things that we would most like to learn more about. In detail, learning task 1, communicate your story to a friend. About 25 minutes. This would be 2 ways. You give it to your friend, and then your friend tells his story to you. Rules only in Greek, in pairs. Your partner will ask you questions, and call over the teacher when you get stuck in communicating. So I would be that dictionary resource for the students and help them in communication. The next part of the detail, after that learning task, we'd have a group discussion in English. Tell us about successes, a line or phrase which you had trouble communicating, but in the end, your partner understood and you were able to communicate. And then a final learning task, they'll break into groups and choose 1 to 2 most important things the group feels they would like to learn better. And then we come back as a full class and record the results. In the closing, we'd evaluate what went well, what we could do to improve this lesson. And then I have them hand in their stories or give them a chance to revise them. Maybe they learned something from their partner and they want to change some things around. Then I'll type up the stories and put them in their writing portfolio, which previously I'd only used for their English compositions, but now I think I'll put their Greek compositions in there too. Activity materials were mostly really for lesson 1. Lesson 2 with the actual activity there weren't much, there's nothing really in the way of materials, but for lesson 1 I had a write up about directions how to write the 6 to 10 sentence story. I had them consider certain questions to ask in preparing for the core story, to use vocabulary from our core vocabulary list that's based on frequency, numbers, and ask them to choose from one of 2 topics, either sort of a true story or a ridiculous, funny story. I also provided them with a sample story and gave them the core vocabulary list. So that lesson 1, I would take a full period to go through this, and we'd talk about the story writing before they did it. References: Tomlinson, the video online, and Jay and Bella, dialogue education guru. Thank you.